Okay, so in today's final class for the embroidery class, we look at the colonial knot, the blanket stitch, and a new combination stitch. So with the colonial knot, it's another alternative to the French knot. And it's basically just using a little different technique on how you wrap the thread around your needle. So if you're struggling a little bit with the French knot, you could try the colonial knot. During today's class, I also used one of the Valdani pearl cottons, size 8, and we can get these in a variety of colors. This one is a lovely rose color with a little bit of color variation to it. So I'm going to do the colonial knot first. So what you do with the colonial knot is, just to help you understand, is I'm going to position the thread in a backwards C shape. So I'm just going to move my thread like that. And then what you do is you're going to go under your thread, and then you're going to wrap your thread, your working thread, over the needle and then under the needle. So you can see it kind of forms a little bit of a figure 8 there. You're going to put a bit of tension on it and hold that and put your needle back down close to where you brought it up at the beginning. And then slowly pull your thread through. And there's the colonial knot. I'm going to do it one more time so you can see it clearly coming up. You're going to put the thread into the backward C like that. Then you're going to bring your needle under the top portion of that C, and then you're going to take your working thread here and go over the needle and then under the needle, and then put your the tip of your needle back down, put a little tension on there, and hold that thread, pull your needle through slowly, and there you have a colonial knot. So you can experiment between the two different knots. You can also try adding a little extra wrap to that if you want to make it a bit bigger. So the next stitch that we showed today is the blanket stitch. Now some of you have probably used the blanket stitch before, but if you haven't, I'm just going to demonstrate it as well. It's good for using around fabrics that have a raw edge, so a lot of times you would use it for applique. So I come up there at the bottom, and I'm simply going to put my needle down and then bring it back up on the vertical line, and you're going to come up between that loop of thread and then just pull it so that you get it into a nice square shape. And then your next stitch, you're going to hold your thread off to the side and repeat it. And then you don't want to pull it too tight. You just want to pull it so that it makes the right shape for you. Now, as you can see here, it's a little bit big, so I will just kind of give it a little bit of a light tug to get it into that shape, nice and square. And then we'll do another one. Now sometimes for a corner, For this type of corner, I usually do put a diagonal stitch. Same thing, only the tip of your needle is going to come up right on the corner. Just like that. And then you turn your hoop and you continue down the other side of your work. So this makes a nice border stitch as well as an edging for any raw edge. Now I'm going to put my needle up in between that loop. And again, just give it a little tweak if it's not the right shape. And if you are doing this and you have trouble with your spacing, you could draw on some lines with a marking pencil that you know will either iron off or come out in the wash if you're going to wash your project. Just get caught there on the fabric. And then to finish, you'll just go down and knot off on the underside. There we go. So I'm just going to quickly cut that to get to the next stitch. So at this point, you have a number of stitches now that we have shown you, and you can use many different combinations of those stitches now in your projects. So I'm going to find you a stitch that I saw when I did a little bit of Googling online, and I just thought it was a really nice stitch that could be used as a filler. And so this is how it looks right here. Now in this case, the person was making one of the petals of a daffodil, but you could use it in a leaf. So I'm going to show you right there how to construct that. Get my needle. So you're going to come up at the tip, and we're going to say that this is a leaf. And you're going to, in this case, bring your stitch about a third of the way down that leaf, or maybe a quarter of an inch. So now what you're going to do is you're going to have one stitch come up to the left of this one, just a little bit down, kind of like the width of your thread, that far down from the top of the last stitch. Oops. And I'm going to make a loop, and I'm going to mirror where I went in on that last thread and go back down, keeping a loop below, and don't pull it all the way through. Bring your needle now up underneath that first vertical stitch, and then slowly pull until your stitch kind of closes up nicely. Now you don't want them to overlap any of the other threads. And now to tag this, or just to pin it down, you do a little mini stitch to hold that loop down. And then you're going to repeat, following the shape. Come down a little bit, like a thread width in this case. Make your loop. Go back down across from that entry. And then bring it up underneath your last spot, and then nestle that in there so it's not overlapping the previous stitch, and then put a little tiny stitch down to hold that loop in place. And then you just keep going, following the profile of this shape, whether it's a leaf or a petal. and just keep going under each of the last stitches. And then I'm going to put a little mini stitch in there. So if you like the look of a filled, say a leaf or a petal, rather than just using an outline stitch, you can use combinations of the stitches we've learned. You could use the chain stitch, which is an outline stitch, but you could use the chain stitch to fill in a large flower petal, for example. I get a lot of inspiration from looking at different embroidery photos on Instagram. Or you could also go to Pinterest and just do a search there. There's all kinds of ideas. So we're getting to the bottom of this shape, and so the stitches are starting to narrow again. I think I got a little knot on the back, which happens from time to time. Pull that through. So it looks like I got one more to finish it off. So last stitch. I probably could have gone in a little bit tighter. But there's all kinds of different combinations of stitches. So now that you've taken the class, you've got a great base. And there it is. So you've got a nice, pretty little petal or leaf design of stitches that you can do. So another thing that I showed today in class is we just got this book in. I'm gonna hold it this way. It's called Tiny Treasures, and it's by Kathy Schmidt. And so she does all these cute little embroidery patterns. And inside it shows you all the different patterns, and then it tells you what stitches were used and what her background was, what her colors were. It's got a great glossary of stitches as well. But most of these stitches you learned in this class, so that'd be a great little project. And what we were talking about today was maybe doing a summer stitching stitch along. So if you're interested, I'm going to bring in more of these little booklets, and we're going to arrange something for possibly July and August. So if that's something you might be interested in, let us know. So thanks everybody. I hope you enjoyed the class, and keep stitching. Have fun.